Everybody, welcome back. It is the 7 o'clock hour here on the Rick Amato program, News Radio 830 KHVH. Thank you for being with us on a state and city county holiday. We are delighted that the boys are back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Steve Keogh, Vice President of SHOPO. Brother Nick is, of course, the Honolulu chapter president. Is that right?
Chapter chair, sir.
Chapter chair. I'll vote for you for president.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And Brother Mark Criccio, who is in studio enjoying retirement because as a retired major, you're going on a trip for how many? 3 years vacation?
Nice.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Awesome.
That's my epic trip. It's going to be good.
But Brother Mark has served for, was it
31 and a half.
The half is important, Rick. You got to get the half in there.
Get the half in
31
there.
and a half.
Yeah.
I think he was using the metric system. That's why I was off.
My target was 27, believe it or not. I want to get out of 27.
27. Why the number 27?
It just worked for me.
Yeah.
Between age and time and the percentage, but then things happened. I stayed.
Wow.
I'm glad I did, though. I'm glad I did.
No?
Yeah,
I would be prayerful that many others feel the same way at this point. But thank you, gentlemen, for being here on a holiday. But we and the topicality moves on. Gentlemen, I had mentioned at the start, I just want to play a very short piece. It is by the legendary Paul Harvey. Steve might be a little young to remember who Paul Harvey is. But
There we go.
But Brother Nick was Paul's personal bodyguard in 1964, and well done.
Right before Elvis.
Sure. Right before. But I want to share this with you and then have your thoughts. Again, this was in the late 1960s. Paul Harvey.
Policeman. A policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. Culled statistics, wave the fan over stinkers, underscore instances of dishonesty and brutality because they are news. What that really means is that they are exceptional, they are unusual, they are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact. And the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform. And that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted. A strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won, but if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer, but if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limp or expect to be sued. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. A policeman must know everything and not tell. He must know where all of the sin is and not partake. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding, but if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. If he gets promoted, he has political pull. If he doesn't, he's a dullard. The policeman must chase bum leads to a dead-end stakeout 10 nights to tag one witness who saw it happen but refuses to remember. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who will get dealed out by a shameless Seamus or an honorable who isn't honorable. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And, of course, he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
50 years ago plus, the sentiments expressed by Paul Harvey, arguably one of the most prolific broadcasters of that time and remains. Around the table, gentlemen, just your thoughts about what Paul Harvey has shared with us half a century later.
You know, Rick, I've heard that before, and I'll tell you, it's not often I hear that, but when I hear that, it really just captivates me. It's so powerful, and it really resonates. Everything he says is really accurate in a lot of ways, and it's really powerful. It's not only his delivery of how he speaks, but the words he uses, and as somebody that wears the uniform, I find myself compelled to listen to every single word of what he says. And I've heard it before, and it doesn't matter how many times I hear it. I'm actively listening every time I hear that. Powerful.
Brother Mark?
You hit it right on the head. I mean, and I think these politicians and all these people that defund the police and all this, they need to listen to this, and every time they open their mouths, play this tape. The tape is just so true. And a couple of things that came to my mind when he was saying this. Number one, he kept saying policeman. Today he gets chastised for that, right? Oh, what about the women, right? So now you have to say police officer, right? Just play on words, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I say, when I was working, when I first came into the department, got my assignment, I worked with these old timers, and we had stopped these kids for something, and one of them called us pigs, right? So I kind of got a little pissed off, and then the old timer says, listen to me, watch. He went up to the guy and goes, you can call us pigs all you want, because do you know what it stands for? Pride, integrity, and guts. So say it all you want. And it stuck with me my whole career, and I would pass that on, So
Yeah.
it's like, but he hit it right on the head.
Got it. Brother Nick?
I think Mr. Harvey's words are right on point. It's pretty amazing to know that somebody 50 years ago said something like that, and today it still resonates perfectly. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, you're talking to 3 police officers here who lived it and are currently living it, and it all resonates perfectly. One of the things that I've learned in the union capacity on this job that I think is really interesting, and it never ceases to amaze me, is that when I meet officers from the mainland, when I meet officers from other jurisdictions, off island as well, from our brother and sister counties, and other union officials who are police union officials, the job is the same no matter where you go. I think Hawaii is unique in certain ways, but at the same time, we all share the same common frustrations. We share the same anxieties. We share the same joys and victories. We share the same defeats. If you have a particular issue that you're trying to work through in your department, I guarantee you, if you called a guy in Twist, Arkansas, he'd probably be like, got the same problem, experiencing the same kind of thing. When people say first responder community is a brotherhood and a sisterhood, that's what it means. You really, really are literally connected to every single police officer who does the job everywhere else in the world.
Has there been, since the height, if we take a look at 2018, 20 pandemic and all this, that the classless disdain expressed about our officers, do you sense that there's a shift, that it's moving away from being so animatedly critical and etc. Post that whole tumultuous period? Are we finally emerging out, or do you still encounter a similar volume, frequency of that type of criticism?
I think it's just ingrained in those people that want to disparage the police. They're not going to change their mind, right? And if an event would happen, say like a George Floyd or something like that, bam, they're coming out with him. They don't care. It's not going to change. It's just an excuse for them to blame the police, defund the police, or it's the police officer's fault, regardless of the rap or what this guy did, right? So the people that are displaying this rhetoric, I think it's just ingrained in them, and it's not going to change them.
You know, Rick, I think that, and again, I have my own personal thoughts on this. I think there's actually an active movement to make our entire country less safe. I think this is part of a bigger desire by a small group of people that have a lot of influence that want to see chaos in our major cities, that want to see a breakdown of what makes this country great, and wants to see a breakdown in civil service and make those that were once independent now dependent on government for all your needs. If you control a population and you put them in fear, they're less likely to speak out. They're less likely to ask questions if they're fearful. I agree with Mark that there is always going to be people that are negative, but I think what's happening now is a small group is given a very large microphone to put this out across our country. And then you have people that are vulnerable and maybe haven't developed a level of critical thinking, that they hear this news and they interpret it, let's say, as gospel. So I think the challenge for us is to make sure that those that have a microphone give it to the right people, and those that have a microphone, if they can do it, speak out when they hear things that are not accurate. Because what's happening now, if you look at our major cities, and we've talked about this before, there really seems to be a breakdown of many, the fabric layers in some of our big cities. It seems like they're just failing, and it all starts with crime, violence, people get in trouble, then they lose their jobs, then they need to go on social services. I just think there's some bigger things in play here, and the law enforcement community is strong. They banded together. The challenge for us is, with the current rhetoric, it's hard to get people into our profession. I would say the people that are here are strong. They're united. They might not want to work like Mark did 31 and a half years. I would say that when they get eligible to retire, they're going to look for the exits, and we're trying to control that through different incentives. But the challenge for us, Rick, is with this narrative, it's hard to get the 20-somethings, right, that are looking for what they want to do with their life to come into our profession. Yeah.
Gotcha. Nick, before we take our break, your thoughts. As a matter of fact, Brother Nick's in uniform today. When you're out and about and encounter folks, do you have a sense of the temperature of Hawaii and the environment regarding our police officers?
I think every day is different. I feel pretty fortunate to be a police officer in Hawaii, just because I think there is a measure of aloha spirit in everybody who lives here, and how police officers and the community as well interact. So I never take that for granted. I always appreciate it. I would say that for those out there that are interested in, and I'll say it again, deregulation, going backwards, following mainland patterns, mainland trends, just be really careful. We as police officers aren't warning you of these kinds of things because we want to put you into a corner, or we want you to be subversive, or we want you to be scared to the point where you'll listen to anything that we're telling you to do. We're doing this because we're experienced and we understand from a firsthand point of view, being out in the field every day and seeing the thick of it, exactly what's going on. This is a warning that we give you because we're just simply afraid, and we represent the community. We have a capacity and an integral part in making sure that things happen and order is and balance is there. Pay attention to where the impetus behind these movements are coming from. Take a good look at your politicians. Take a good look at where their financial backing is coming from. Take a good look at who they're listening to on the mainland, and start to think about why. What's the real reason for all of this for all of this deregulation, for all of this interesting legislation that comes out.
And there we have it, 7:23 in the morning already. Very well put, gentlemen. Thank you very much for addressing it. Thanks to Paul Harvey for starting us off. It is already 7:24. Welcome back. It is already 7:24. We're so close to the bottom of the hour, but use our time wisely and maybe with Nick and Steve with specificity, if you will. A little chapter check-in. Just to bring us up to speed. Maui, Big Island, Hawaii, of course, Kauai, and of course here, Honolulu. Brother Nick, just a brief, how's the chapter?
Sure, thank you. Our chapter, I think, is doing pretty well right now. As the public knows, we're going into a new work schedule in August, which we've spent a lot of time working on through a pilot program in 2 patrol districts out in Districts 4 and 5. It's going to be a very unique schedule that the department has never really seen before, getting a lot of enthusiasm for it within the ranks. As far as the other chapters go, I think what you're going to see, well, we're starting to see it right now, and you're going to see this through the rest of this year and then next year, is a lot of interesting competition for potential employees. Now we're seeing
internal recruitment competition.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're seeing departments here locally starting to, no offense, but come up to the times as far as what mainland departments are doing for recruitment and retention ideas. And then you're also starting to see a competition between all 4 counties, which is really interesting. So you have Chief Moskowitz on the Big Island, who's doing some pretty interesting things out there. You have Maui with its pilot program for its patrol officers. And then they made an announcement that they're interested in going for an alternate work schedule for non-sworn employees and also administrative employees. So the heat is on, and it's really interesting to see. Steve alluded last week that we were at the Police Commissioners Conference about almost 2 weeks ago, and you could tell that there was a bit of a competition going on amongst all 4 chiefs. It was pretty interesting. Never seen it before, and to be honest with you, I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad that there's a lot of emphasis being put on this now. There's nothing wrong with competition, and I wholeheartedly encourage the chiefs to keep at it.
All right, Steve.
So, Rick, here in Honolulu, right, Honolulu County specifically, regarding we'll call it the 313, the alternate work schedule, there's 8 patrol districts here on Oahu. And the 8 patrol districts in August, when we have that August movement, there's going to be 2 watches now. We currently have 3. There's going to be 2 watches, and the officers will work 13 and a half, 13, so it'll be a 3-day work week for about 10 weeks of a 14-week cycle. The shifts are going to be a little bit different. The way we understand it, it's going to, if you work daytime shift, you're going to start your day at 6 in the morning, and you're going to finish up at 7:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be an overlap. So the cops that are working day watch and the cops that are working night watch are going to overlap. So the cops on day watch are going to work till 7:30 p.m., and then the cops that work night watch are going to come in at 6 p.m.
Oh.
But here's what's exciting for us, and it's something different, and I really applaud HPD administration. And we were just able to come together with this. That overlap between watches is going to allow for officer wellness and officer development. And what that means is if you are a supervisor and you're on day watch and you need to regroup with your people, you're going to have the flexibility to do that at the end of shift. There's also a push for officer wellness where the officers that work patrol, if they want to do any kind of training physically, they want to wipe their gear down, they're going to have the ability at the end of the day to do different things that they feel are going to be important to them. And it's something we really never had before. So we're looking forward to this. And as Nick alluded to, why did we go to this? Well, we served a lot of masters with this. One, we're thinking that in the end, it's probably going to be more fiscally responsible, okay, to run a patrol division on this schedule. We think it's going to increase staffing by anywhere between 10 to 15%, all right, on each watch. Mm-hmm. We feel that it's going to encourage our members to want to stay in the patrol bureau and come to the patrol bureau, because I think it's important to clarify that there's a lot of jobs within the police department. We have a lot of divisions and sections, and this schedule is exclusively for patrol officers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this was something that we did. I was recruited on this back in 2006, and it was taken away. So this is the first time in about 17 years that this has been revisited. We're also hoping that this spurs recruitment. A lot of mainland police departments are currently on some sort of alternate work schedule, whether it's a 410 or a 312. And again, it's all about being competitive, attracting people to the profession in a variety of ways. I would say police work is a calling, but there's also the rational side of how do I pay my bills? How do I spend time with my family? So we feel that for Honolulu membership, that this work schedule for our patrol members is something that's going to be positive. We're excited to see how it goes.
I love that. Mark, we're going to come to you after the break first because there's some follow-up. But again, thank you for the explanation, perspective, and more. Stand by. It's 7:30. Want to make sure we get our business taken care of. And then we'll return and follow up with a report on chapters, specifically the new shifts, the new schedules, if you will. And it's 7:30. 7:35 in the morning. Once again, delighted that the fellas are in studio today. Brother Nick, Brother Steve, Brother Mark. If you're just joining us, we've had some conversation about chapter updates. And part of that, of course, is the revised schedule that is taking effect very soon for our patrol officers. However, there's been some news reports that allude to, well, because it's only a 3-day schedule, it's a long extended day, the toll on officers is going to be profound to the point where, as a matter of fact, there may be a compromise in safety and security because of the abilities to perform at the optimum level, etc. So, Brother Mark, I know you've seen some of these reports. I'd like to get your take, please.
Oh, first of all, I think it's a good schedule. 3 days a week, I didn't think, I was on the 312 when Chief Donahue was chief and brought it up. So I was a sergeant at the time. And, prior to that, I was an officer. I worked both as a sergeant and an officer. And, the main reason for the 312 back then was to boost patrol. Because everybody's going to specialized units, patrols, everybody's getting out of patrol. So that was the main reason for it. And it worked. Because people liked the schedule. So then when administration, after Chief Donahue left, new chief came in, they went away with it, and I did not think I'd ever see it come back again. So, credit to the department, credit to the union bringing it back. Because I think this is a different schedule than what we had before, because you're only going to work 3 days. And then one thing I like a lot with this schedule is the overlap. So if you do get a late case, now you have the time to do it. Me and Nick were talking about it earlier. If you're coming in early in the morning, you hit traffic. Well, now, you're not going home late because, you got that overlap. Mm-hmm. Another thing, it's going to give you more staffing, more people on the road, right? And what I like about what they want to do with this one is patrol only. So what happened to the last one was it was meant for patrol only. But now all these other divisions were coming in and saying, I think we should go to 312. And they would give their justification for it, and then it would go. So then, it wasn't patrol only, right? So it should be patrol only. That's it, because you need to boost patrol, right? As far as, the critics on, they're going to be tired. They're doing it already. They're working 9 hours, but they're not working 9. They're working a lot. Everybody knows in the department, if you're working a 9-hour day, you're working 12, or you have late cases. And you're tired when you go home, but when you're working, the adrenaline's going, you're in your groove, so you're not going to be tired at work. When you get home, you're tired. That's how I felt. Mm-hmm. So the guys can handle it. So as far as the fatigue on the road, I'm not worried about it.
How will this be communicated to recruits? And if you would, maybe just a brief summary of what a package actually looks like now, the compensation package for a new recruit and maybe perhaps even existing officers. What does the total package look like all the way from now this schedule to benefits to salary, because we've had movement on all fronts?
Well, as far as the work schedule itself goes, that's the main factor that's changing. We haven't touched any other cost items, anything like increase in comp time, bank allowance increase in hourly pay, standard of conduct pay, night differential, nothing like that at all. I mean, right now we're just simply focusing on hours of work. But one of the things that I've learned as a union official over time, especially in the Honolulu chapter, is that police officers are very motivated by the ability to make the balance between their work time and their personal time. Being able to pick what time of the day that you work and the frequency of time that you work is a big deal. So to have all of this additional time off, regardless of the fact that the workday is longer, that's a huge incentive for officers out there. All right. You have decompression time in your days off, which we all have. On a 5-day schedule where you're working 8 hours a day, that's not very easy to do. On a 5-9, which is the current patrol schedule, you can get away with it to a certain extent, depending on where you are in your letter rotation and whether or not it's your 2-day off weekend or 3-day off weekend. But this is a guarantee as far as how much time you have off, and that's a huge incentive. I think knowing that ahead of time is a big deal to people. And again, we haven't touched any other cost factor items yet. So as far as all the benefits go, the other benefits, they're all exactly the same for the moment.
It was in conversation with the mayor and Bill 51, which was voted upon this past week, that there was the increase in the allocation for Honolulu Police based on the contracts that were pre-negotiated. So it seems that coupled with this new schedule is going to change the conversation in recruitment.
Well, it could. I mean, obviously we do have a measure of bonuses worked into our contract until the end of this contract. That's all pre-decided, though. And I want to make that really clear. Yeah. There was a news article that I think came out last week that said that Bill 51 included an increase in budget for recently negotiated pay raises. I just want to make it really clear. That's not recently negotiated per se, like we just did this in the last week or two or last 6 months. This is something that we did at last contract negotiation. We're coming up to our regular step raise time. And if the budget has been increased, it has been increased to accommodate the agreement that we've already made in the past. Yeah.
And Rick, when it comes to police compensation, it's a little bit complicated simply because we have a rank structure that's paramilitary. So the pay is predicated upon rank, and then it's also predicated upon years of service with the department that you work for. As far as compensation, it is the same through all the different counties. And as you alluded to, this July 1st, our membership statewide is going to get a 5% increase in whatever step they're at. But to make it simple for the listeners, I'd say it's between $4,000 and $5,000 annually, depending on where you're at. So this July, all of our county membership on all the counties, give it right between 4 and 5, depending on where you're at in terms of rank and time in the department. And then, Rick, as far as dissecting kind of the 312 with fatigue and this kind of thing, let's remember that there are many jobs within the police department. And if one of our members finds out that maybe the patrol schedule or the patrol lifestyle doesn't work for them, they're able to go to somewhere else and be productive within the department. Additionally, as Nick stated, this schedule is going to assist with staffing. And the expression, many hands make light work. So if we have more patrolmen and patrol officers that are out in the communities, the caseload's going to get dispersed a little bit better, right? Yeah. And then additionally, with having more days off, I would say that conditioning and preparation makes for success. So the membership's going to have 4 days off to recharge, get those cortisol levels down again, and do whatever they do to kind of get back to center to prepare for the next work shift. Yeah.
I'm going to direct to Mark for a moment, because there were side stories that purported with the number of officer vacancies currently. And the report alludes to or connects number of officer vacancies equals a compromise of public safety. The response to that, Mark, would be what?
I think it was a slow news day for HNN that day. But, we do have a lot of vacancies, right? There's almost 400 vacancies, right? However, they're not going to leave the road short. there's ways of bringing other people in, whether it be overtime, bringing people in from other specialized units. Patrol, yeah, we're short. Maybe they're not going to have enough time to do proactive stuff, but calls for service and public safety, it's always going to be there, you know. So, you know, like the headline was startling number spur public safety concerns. I mean, where's that coming from? Who's saying that, right? But, you know, Steve, on the road, have you seen that?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit sensationalized, but the reality is, as Nick alluded to, we're trying to share with people now that kind of we're taking on some water. Okay, the ship's not going to go under, but we're taking on water and we need to do something immediately. Ship's going off course, we got to try to correct it. If I'm not mistaken, Nick, I want to say in Honolulu County, there's about 193 officers. If I read the sheet right, about 190 that are eligible to retire at any time. So we want to keep them around a little bit. We don't all want them to all walk off, because then, you know, then we're pushing 500 vacancies.
But that when we see these statistics, it's not patrol specific. It's not it's overall.
Right.
Is
Correct.
it all duty, all rank as well? So if you have administrative officers, lieutenant and above, and then we have patrol officers, etc. That number 193 encompasses all.
That 193 eligible retire encompasses all, and then when it comes to vacancies, Rick, the way that it works out is there's an allotment of what we call P numbers for different areas within the police department. And obviously, depending on what district and what area, there's some P number vacancies that we want to try to fill, and then you fill in the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. Are we actively recruiting in other markets as they recruit in ours?
I couldn't tell you exactly what the department is doing as far as recruiting goes, and that's no offense to the Human Resources Department and HPD. I'm just not really familiar with it, but I would like to share one story that I thought was really interesting. Somebody showed me a screenshot photograph of the gasoline pumps. I think it was on a Marine Corps installation here. And here's this flyer on the top of the gas pump for California Highway Patrol, marketing to our Marines at a Marine Corps base here on Oahu, saying, great job opportunities, great benefits, a signing bonus that was a lot of money. I won't say the number. So it's no secret, at least within the police culture here in Honolulu, that outside counties come in and try and headhunt. That's a given. That's been going on forever.
Wow.
But to see it actually to that level, I thought was pretty interesting.
And there it is. I have to take a break, but first of all, could you negotiate my contract here at iHeart? And could I perhaps pursue a 3-day work week? Anything we could do? Or could we transition the position over to Colonel of Ribeye and Cabernet? I'm still the creation of that position. Would that be a possibility?
Absolutely. We'll even try for a pool bar for you.
And I say work from France.
If you and Rick,
Yeah.
Rick, if you want the title of colonel, I think you'll have to be like with the Louisiana State Highway Patrol. But
Well, that's all right. Yeah, that's all
I think
right.
if you want to call yourself colonel, you're going to have to be on the Highway Patrol, maybe in Virginia, Alabama, something like that.
Well, thank you for not making a fat joke with me and saying, yes, you could be colonel of fried chicken. But that's okay. I love it. I love it. Thank you, fellas. Short break, final one. We'll be back with more. It is the Rook Amata program and the SHOPO Hour, returning in a month. All right, I normally don't do this, but I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go to line number 1, calling in at 521-8383, and I'll ask right off the bat.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to KHH Radio. Who's this, please?
Yeah, this is Manny.
Manny. Good morning. Thanks for your call. You're on with the SHOPO Hour. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I got a couple questions to ask the young man there. When I first went into the department in 1971, Pearl City had a 410 program. Pearl City and Waianae, that was District 3 at that time. So we actually had 3 watches shifts that would come in, and we have always have an overlap of about 2 hours. And it was a really good program. It worked. And when we changed days off, we would have 4 days off. So I don't know where you guys came up with this 3 days, 12-hour days, because to me, you can say, well, the policemen they have 2-3 hours to do their work, but they're going to be exhausted after 13 hours. Okay. So I don't know.
Is there an actual question or something the gentleman can answer for you? Do you have a question, Manny?
Yeah, I just said, why didn't they go back and do some research and find out about the 410 program that worked 50 years ago?
All right. Thank you very much. By the way, I love the way you broach your calls and then you just go right in with hyper criticism in the question. But it's a valid question. So I'll pose it to the gentleman in studio. Your response?
Sure. Thanks for calling, sir. So as far as the amount of research that went into the situation goes, yeah, actually we did quite a bit. This was not something that we walked into lightly. A 410 was discussed. That was something that the department told us that they weren't able to do, basically because at the moment we don't have the staffing in order to fill a 410. So we had to look at other options, and we did. And this is the solution that we came up with.
Brother Steve?
No, we're always happy to hear feedback from our retirees and those that used to wear the uniform. And just to Nick's point, the 410 was discussed, but it just wasn't something that could work out here with Honolulu PD at this time. And both the union and police leadership felt that the alternate work schedule is something that we're gonna give a try, and we think it's gonna work.
And Mark?
Manny, thanks for your years of service. So I appreciate you serving the community and calling in. However, the 410, it's a known fact. The 410, you have to have more staffing. And the reason for this 312 was to bring more staffing in. So the 410 does take a lot more staffing to accommodate. So that's probably one of the reasons they didn't go to it.
And my response was broached under the assumption in the statement. It irritated me. So it's my own, is that to assume there was no research, there was no contemplation, there was no consideration, analysis, surveying, dogged pursuit of what is best is always
Ricky, we don't want to
present.
forget. We don't want to forget. We did basically, Nick, a 15-month pilot program in 2 districts, District 4 and District 5. So there was comprehensive and extensive research on this before it was implemented.
I gotcha. Well, we have about 4 minutes remaining. I would like to take a call, but clearly I should have a call screen. No, I know. I see the calls, but I got to have someone answer the phone because I'm not taking another cold call again. And I apologize, callers. I'll resolve this as soon as possible. However, final thoughts. I just have one question. I may not know. Is there was a dust-up last week when Florida Governor DeSantis had flown migrants to California. Governor Newsom then accused DeSantis of kidnapping. I know that's, but if there is the arrival of illegal immigrants by the feds in a location like all over the country is happening now, would we be made aware of the transportation and arrival? Would HPD be notified? Would agencies that you work with, would they share that information with HPD? I'm just curious, given the days in which we live.
My initial thing is to say no, because it seems like a lot of this is being done in secrecy. And again, Florida is not a sanctuary state, so it would make sense then that these individuals that are here through non-legal channels would be put in cities that are broadcasting that they are sanctuary cities. That would only make sense. I don't agree with it, but if that's what Governor Newsom is saying, California is a sanctuary state, then it would make sense that people that bypass our legal immigration system and come in the country illegally, then their only option would be to go to a state that raises their hand, or a city, and says, we're okay with lawless immigration. Come to us.
Gotcha. About a minute and a half remaining or so. Final thoughts today, boys. Start with Mark Criccio. What would you like to share?
You got some good news. So Detective Dave Easley of the King County Sheriff's Department, he's home out of the hospital. He received a kidney. You know, he was shot a couple times like a couple months ago. And he's doing extremely well. So
thank you.
They had the Hawaii boys, because there's a contingent in Seattle that left the department, and they're in Seattle now, and they had a little barbecue for him yesterday. So he's doing very well.
Nice. Thank you, Mark. 10 seconds.
There's a lot of parades that come through Waikiki, and one of the best ones I think you could choose to watch is the Kamehameha Day Parade. It was absolutely beautiful yesterday. Love it.
I love that too. And Brother Nick, final thought, 2 seconds.
Happy Cam Day, everybody. Thanks for listening. Take care.
There we go. It is the size and the girth and the variety of topicality that we cover here on the SHOPO Hour. I want to thank you, gentlemen, very, very much.